Hi everybody, I hope that you're all doing really well today. So yes, I am all fancy up top because I wanted to overcompensate for the Stark of Winterfell t-shirt that I've got on. I'm taking the week off of work to do my show, My Fair Lady, so I'm quite embracing wearing very casual clothes during the day. But then when it comes to filming videos, I want to feel like a little bit fancier for you, so here we go. Is this enough? Is this extra? I don't know. But today I am here to start doing the first of quite a few tags that you're going to be getting from me. Basically, in the space of about 48 hours, I was alerted to 4 different new tags, or at the very least I was tagged in them. I think I was tagged in 3 of the 4 that I'm going to do. And they all sounded really fun and interesting, and I just wanted to get involved. And I'm basically just going to do them in order of when I first found out about them. So the first one that I'm going to do today is the Marion Halcum Tag, named after one of the central figures of The Woman in White. And this tag was created by my friend Becky over at the Instagram account Bleedin' Reads. And she basically said, I wanted to make a book tag celebrating my favourite women in literature. I've got together 9 prompts to select characters from. Basically, for each of the 9 prompts, she gives a little description, just very short and sweet, that you can fit in your favourite character who really emphasises this trait. So just getting straight into the questions, number 1 is quietly powerful. And I feel like this is a really good one for me to start with because this is my favourite kind of literary heroine. I don't know if there's a touch of narcissism thrown in there because out of all of the prompts, I would say if I am any of these myself in terms of personality, then I would go towards the more quietly powerful. Even then, I don't know about powerful, but definitely quiet. I fit quiet, apart from when I ramble in my YouTube videos. But I feel like these female characters, for me, are the most relatable. They are characters who are not necessarily like the badass warrior women. You know, they're not like physical fighters. They're maybe not the sassiest people in the world, but they do have a lot of calm resolve and focus and patience. They are often characters who are very constant in their loyalty. And even though they are not the most beautiful or the most glamorous, they are the ones who are reliable. Characters for this I could think of would be people like Molly Gibson from Wives and Daughters, Fanny Price from Mansfield Park, who I think is kind of the proto Molly Gibson, Cosette from Les Mis. I could even make an argument for Jane Eyre being a quietly powerful figure. But of course, my favourite of these, because I mention her all the time whenever favourite characters comes up, is Sansa Stark from A Song of Ice and Fire. She's probably my favourite female character of all time, and even though I do love the series, I am talking specifically about her book counterpart, which I find very interesting in itself since the book series has not yet finished. We haven't yet gotten to see all of Sansa's character arc yet, and actually from season 4 onwards in the show, like her plot just diverges so much from the books. But I feel like Sansa in the books really does represent this idea of the quietly powerful woman. She's somebody who started off the series being very naive, not being very self-aware, and just generally being very unaware and innocent of the political machinations of others. But as a result of early trauma and hardships, she develops this real resilience, and a lot of her power and her growth as a character is internal. Unlike her sister Arya, she's not like out in the world learning how to fight, but in her story she's learning a lot about people and personalities and motivations and politics. She's somebody who to everybody else seems like there's not much going on inside her head, but actually when you're in her perspective you see that she's taking in everything around her and she's learning bits and pieces of these people. She's keeping her head down and not saying much, not because she doesn't have anything to say, but she knows that that is the smartest decision. It's the way that's going to keep her alive. And you know, if the books ever do get finished, I'm really intrigued to see where her story goes. You know, as you can see, I'm a fan of the Starks, and I know that the books are going to be slightly different from the TV show, but I do want to see the Starks on top. Question number 2 is a childhood favourite, and of course the big series that was and is my favourite series is of course Harry Potter. But being really honest with you, I feel like as a child, as much as I loved Hermione as a character, she was never really my favourite, and to be honest she still isn't. I would say if any female character has had a strong, maybe not an influence on me, but she's had a very strong pull to my heart, it would definitely be Jacqueline Wilson characters, and in particular Tracy Beaker. I guess she hasn't had a strong influence on me in that I am not as loud and boisterous as she is, though sometimes I do wish I could be. But I feel like it was really cool as a young kid to see a female character who is very opinionated, who says exactly what she thinks, but also does have this layer of insecurity, who has a lot of hidden depths, and people write her off as being naughty, a bad child, whereas you know from reading from her perspective that that's not who she is at all. This is a child who has been very deeply neglected. This is a child whose primary caregiver did not look after her and ignored her. And of course that's going to have consequences. Of course Tracy is going to act out, because the main adults in her life that she should have been able to depend on were not there for her, were not reliable. And I feel like the story of Tracy Beaker is her trying to get some sort of consistency in her life and getting people who really understand her. And I think she's great. Question number 3 is doomed, a tragic heroine. I feel like especially if you're going in the 19th century, there are so many doomed heroines, but I feel like I personally could not answer this question faithfully if I didn't answer Fantine from Les Miserables. We know I love Les Mis. And there are so many characters in Les Mis who have a tragic ending, but really Fantine is the character who ends up driving the plot. The way that she is treated by the father of her child Felix at the beginning of the book is absolutely devastating to read, but her absolute determination and her love for her daughter Cosette is what really drives her to keep going, even though society is rejecting her. And ultimately, Fantine's death is not a result of her failure, it's a result of the failure of society, of the people around her who should have looked after her, who should have been understanding of her circumstances and tried to help her, but the help that she did get came a little bit too late. But it's Fantine's tragedy and her sacrifice that really incentivizes the main character of Jean Valjean to really understand what it means to be a better person. He's already gone on this big journey at the beginning of the book, in the first 200 pages or so, but it's really when he meets Fantine that he realizes how far he's come short. And by looking after her daughter Cosette, he learns what it means to be a father and to have somebody in your life that you do truly love and care for, that you would protect to the ends of the earth. I did really like Fantine. Question number 4 is in a new light, and this is to look at a female character who has been retold. And of course I am a very big fan of my Greek myth retellings, as you'll probably know, but that's not what I want to answer today. I'm actually going to answer the same as Becky did for this question, and I'm going to answer Mary Bennet as she appears not in Pride and Prejudice but in The Other Bennet Sister, which you may know was one of my favourite books of last year. I absolutely adored The Other Bennet Sister, being able to get her perspective on the events of Pride and Prejudice, but also get to see what happens to Mary after. It's really this journey of her finding herself, of her learning to like herself when she'd been in a family that had always been very derogatory towards her, you know, being the only plain child in the family. Her mother was always very critical of her father didn't take her seriously, and she was kind of the odd one out with her sisters. In the book we very much see Lizzie and Jane hanging out together, Lydia and Kitty hanging out, and then there's just Mary in the middle. And so it feels very right that the story of The Other Bennet Sister is Mary stepping away from this immediate family and having this new family in the Gardeners who really help her to come out of her shell and realise what her strengths are, which is her intellect and her passion. Because when she's interested in a particular topic, we see in The Other Bennet Sister that she's a delight to be around. People are interested in what she has to say. I think as somebody else who is kind of quiet, but when she finds a topic that she's interested in, you can't stop me from talking. I could really relate to that, and I felt so much comfort in seeing Mary be appreciated for what she brings. Question number 5 is sharp-tongued, to which I think Becky is meaning a sharp-tongued heroine, somebody who always has something witty to say. And for me, I absolutely could not do this without mentioning Beatrice from Much Ado About Nothing. Much Ado has become one of my favourite Shakespeare plays. It's definitely top 3 for me, and I think part of that is because of this witty repartee between Beatrice and Benedict. But I think what you see through Much Ado is that Beatrice is not just witty because of her back and forth with Benedict. She is witty on her own. She's somebody that people find hilarious, sometimes a bit grating, but definitely funny, and people very quickly see how intelligent she is, all through the power of her speech. I love her a lot. It's a character that I would love to play, but I don't know if I myself am witty enough to do it. I don't know if I've got like the right sass to do that role. Question number 6 is force of nature, and for this I was kind of batting between Emma Woodhouse from Emma and then Evelyn Hugo from The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, because I think in different ways these women are really forces of nature. They are very determined. Once they have their mind set on something, there is nothing and nobody who will get in their way. I think maybe where I lean more towards Evelyn Hugo is that Emma can be reined in a little bit more. I think she has strong influences in the likes of Mr. Knightley who can kind of pull her back, whereas I feel like Evelyn Hugo is such a dominating force in the novel, in her friendship group, that even if she does have some people who give her another perspective, she's so laser focused. She's so determined to get exactly what she wants in her career and her life that sometimes she gets in her own way of happiness. Question number 7 is a romantic at heart, and of course I have to answer with Jane Austen heroines. I think between Catherine Morland and Marianne Dashwood, you've definitely got your lot in romantic at heart. Hopeless romantics. These are 2 female figures in Jane Austen who often get in their own way because they are such hopeless romantics, because they have such an idealised view of the world. For Catherine, it just kind of leaves her with some social faux pas, but with Marianne, she almost almost dies because of her sensibility. They're very fun characters to read about, and it's a kind of character that I can see a lot of myself in, but I don't know if I would go as far. You know, I am somebody who loves a good rom-com, I love a romance plot, I am a bit of a daydreamer, but I think I am slightly more grounded than these two. I think I have marginally a little bit more sense. I think there's a touch more Eleanor in me than there is a Marianne, but they're delightful to read about. And they are two people who I think really brighten up a room and liven up a conversation, and those are definitely personalities that I love. Question number 8 is a bookworm, and of course you have to go with the original, Matilda Wormwood from Matilda. I think we know from the fact that I have owned, I think, 5 copies of Matilda in my life how much I love this book, and she's another character who I would say fits the first prompt of a quietly powerful person, literally in that she has telekinesis. She's a bookworm, she's very intelligent, she's not show-offy with her knowledge and her reading, but because she is so different to the rest of her family, they really take offence at this, and it's really when the injustice of her treatment gets to her that she starts to snap and she's like, hey, this is not how I'm going to be treated. And I love that. You know, she's a character who is quiet, who is fair, but she doesn't take any nonsense, not even from her parents. And she's able to outfox them even though she's 7 years old. And then finally, question number 9 is despicably fascinating. The first person who I wanted to mention for this was definitely Cersei Lannister from A Song of Ice and Fire. This is a character who I love to hate. I know some people absolutely despise her, but I can never quite get on that train. I just think she's really interesting and I love reading, especially her perspective. I think from A Feast for Crows onwards, we start to get Cersei Lannister's perspective, how she's viewing the world, and I think that adds so much depth to her character. And it also lets you know just how unhinged she is, just how much she is not seeing the world the way that it actually is, just how selfish she is, how self-serving she is. But there are times when you definitely sympathise with her as a woman living in this very patriarchal society, how she is treated horribly. But unlike some of the other women in A Song of Ice and Fire, like Sansa, who react to this unkindness by showing compassion to other people, Cersei does not do that. She takes in all of this hatred and then gives it right back. Another character who I wanted to mention who I think is despicably fascinating, but to a lesser extent, is Mrs. Gibson from Wives and Daughters, because I just think she is one of the biggest examples of a gaslighter, and I hate her so much, but she is also really funny. She's so ridiculous and so over the top, and she's so obsessed with appearances and having people see her in a certain light, even though her actual behaviour does not match up to the image she wants to present of herself. I think she's slightly more of a relatable character than Cersei Lannister. I think you will find many more characters like her in real life, and I think that's why she's so fascinating. So there we go, those are all of my answers to the Marion Halcombe book tag. Thank you so much to Becky for creating this. I'm going to tag below a few lovely ladies to do this tag, but of course if you would like to do this and I've not tagged you, go right ahead. I'd just love to hear more about your favourite female characters. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.